Uncertainty archetypically triggers the inner critic, right? We could flee the inner critic by avoiding our callings, our longings to be expressed. We could appease to the inner critic and believe it to be true. Oof, so painful. Or we could freeze and be paralyzed with the inner critic. All of those are very natural human responses. But what I love to teach, and the practice that I've been involved in for a number of years that has evolved my relationship to my inner critic and evolved people's relationships to their inner critic, is a very Buddhist, mindful, compassionate approach. And that is actually consenting to the inner critic. We're putting ourselves in a position of power to say, oh, I see you as distinct from me. You're a part of me, but you are not me. Here's the talking stick for a contained amount of time. I will hear you and practice not reacting to you, right? Which is what we all want. We all deeply want just to be heard and not reacted to.
Welcome to the Born Creators podcast, the show where we color outside the lines, leave the boxes behind, and reclaim our birthright as creators of our own lives. If you're ready for a reset, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Tony, an intuitive channel, guide, and artist, and today I'm here with Chetna Mehta. Chetna is a multidisciplinary artist, alchemist, creativity doula who transmutes anxiety, depression, stagnancy, and disconnection into awareness, creative life force, embodied trust, flow, beauty, and purpose. Through her platform and business, Mosaic Eye, her membership community, The River, and the podcast Creation for Liberation, Chetna is on a mission to steward peace, love, and freedom on earth by unlocking the innate creativity and flow within women and non-binary changemakers everywhere. Ooh, just letting that wash over me. That is such powerful work, and I'm so honored to have you here on Born Creators. How are you feeling today?
In this moment, I feel grateful for having heard you read those words with such presence and sincerity. So, thank you for that. I feel really excited to be in conversation with you on this beautiful creation that you've unfolded into the world.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, this before we started recording, I was sharing that this is such a full circle moment for me to be here with you because you absolutely were one of my primary creative doulas at a time where I deeply needed that support. Thinking back to who I was and where I was in 2020, the great portal of awakening for a lot of people
Right.
and a lot of pain, the duality of it all. But I was just going back through my notes and my emails and just seeing that registration email where I signed up for, I believe it was called Abundant Creativity that you offered in, what was a very scary time, a very, very scary time for a lot of people. It was just so nourishing to join that circle, that collective, and to feel held and seen. Because leading up to that, I was in a career that didn't feel aligned, in a location that energetically, now I know, energetically was not good at all for me.
Mm.
And I felt really stifled and held back. So thank you for your offerings. Thank you for all of the space that you hold and the liberation that you, I would say, are a warrior for. It might be through art and what we consider to be softer, but it is very powerful. You are a warrior. So I just want to start by asking why why this work? Why this path? Just a small question.
That's so funny. Well, I just want to acknowledge, Tony, that when I met you, like your essence is still the same. even though your circumstances have changed so dramatically, like your light is still very much present. So it's just fascinating for me to witness then to now and just want to reflect back that like and for listeners too, right? Like it can feel, and I'm receiving this medicine myself as I am also in the process of navigating fear and like
Mm.
the growing pains that come with expansion, with rising up, leveling up to the responsibilities of what it means to be alive on the planet right now, right? So the medicine is that our essence is always there, and maybe we have stories or beliefs or circumstances that want to hide our light from us. And what a responsibility, privilege, joy, delight, honor to get to like keep discovering our essence and keep finding our essence again and again as it remains there. So, why this path? Well, I feel like this path kind of is a way of finding my essence through being a mirror and a co-steward with folks to find their essence. And creativity is life force energy to me. Creativity is more than what we paint or what we write or what we birth. It's who we are in the world, right? It's like what we embody, how we embody our values, how we live out our dharma, right? So I think that I have been chosen by this path and I have to choose it every day. I think being, I love that you use the word warrior. I often identify as a disruptor. I feel like I was disrupting systems and expectations and societal norms since I was a kid, and it's a lonely path and it's a scary path. Though I think that loneliness has beckoned me into longing and finding community and making community. And through that, through becoming more resilient via community, I think I can do this work and choose it more every day and honor the fact that, okay, maybe I am a disruptor, not because I want to be, because again, it's lonely and it is painful sometimes, though I've also experienced the necessity of it. So I don't
Yeah,
think I've chosen this path based on my own will or logic, but that it's part of why I'm here, and my responsibility is to rise to it each day and to choose it back.
absolutely. It sounds like it's your soul work. You mentioned it's your dharma. It's a path that essentially brought you towards it. I'm very curious for your own personal path if you had kind of a before and after, a life where maybe you were in autopilot, you were not as lit up and clear about your path. And if so, can you share about that and what helped you shift into the work you're doing now?
Yeah, I think it was one of the ways we really connected in the beginning because I identified with your story working in the corporate realm and feeling disconnected and whatnot. But I will say that I've had many befores and afters. I've
Oh,
been
yeah.
reborn as a creator many times. Though I would say the first really big one was when I was about 23. I was working in corporate. I was making my immigrant parents very proud. And I was doing the most.
Mm.
I was, going to yoga every morning at 5 a.m. 5 a.m. You think that was like very good. Waking up, going to yoga, amazing. Look at her. And then I would go to my full-time job, my tech job, and then I was longing for more community at that time. And so I got a part-time job facilitating events around San Francisco, and I was living in San Jose at the time. And so I was going on these events and it was really fun, but I really didn't need to be doing all that. And one morning I woke up at 5 a.m. to go to yoga with a friend, then came home, got ready, went to work, had a full day at work, then drove from San Jose to San Francisco an hour to go to this party that I had co-organized to celebrate something's happening with my part-time job. I got a promotion that night at my part-time job at this party. And then I go to drive home at 1 a.m. and I fall asleep on the road, on the freeway. and I crashed into the center divide. Thank goddess I didn't hit anybody else. But it totally fucked me up. I was in a wheelchair for 2 months. I couldn't walk. I had to rely solely on my family to bathe me, to feed me, to do all of these things. And my family rearranged their lives to support me for 2 months. And that corporate job that I was in was a blessing at this point in time because I had high quality insurance. I could pay for this mistake that I made in a way of being totally disembodied, thinking I was
Mm.
in the passenger seat of my life. Meanwhile, here I was driving, totally unaware of the power that I was yielding and giving up. And so that's when I started to learn about meditation. That's when I was introduced to teachers and muses like Thich Nhat Hanh or Carl Jung or Eckhart Tolle, and started to really notice what was happening internally and realize that there was this huge disconnect between what I really wanted and longed for and what I was told to want and long for. And I started to realize that, oh, making my immigrant parents proud isn't like the measure of success for me. Because look what this got me. And started to question what I really wanted to do and what lights me up. So that was a huge, huge one. And I think about it a lot. I have a plate and two screws in my ankle, and I'm very attuned to it, right? It affects my movement to a certain degree when I'm dancing, when I'm doing squats every day, right? So it's a reminder of this experience that I honor every single year because I can see myself, especially when I'm driving. I can see myself when I'm disembodied or when I'm like enraged or when I'm careless and when I'm forgetting that even just the practice of driving, for example, like I'm operating heavy machinery right now and I get to do this. Also, I get to do this and my grandmother never got to do this. So even that ancestral privilege that I have access to. So that's a really good telltale sign if I'm moving too quickly or not embodied. And it brought me to the work that I do now, right? To be reflective of what's happening internally first and to see how that's affecting how I interact with the world around me. And creativity was always just a natural thing. I also feel blessed to have been raised by a mother who really cultivated my creativity. So I don't feel like I ever necessarily lost that. Creativity was cultivated by my family, and it was always a coping strategy for me through immigration, through loneliness, through longing for community and not yet finding it. Right? Creativity was always there for me, like a very resilient, persistent companion in my life. So when I really listened and tapped into what felt natural, everything related to creativity was there for me.
Mm. 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 Wow. I just want to say I'm so grateful that you're here, right? Because that story could have gone a different way. And I'm so grateful that not only did it provide a wake-up call, but it created a portal for you to choose a different path and to take people along with you. And you've touched so many lives as a result of that. I'm not sure if as you're doing your work, you tune into that. But I just want to reflect that to you as someone who has transformed within the work that you put out into the world, connected with your art, felt seen and supported in so many ways. Because that loneliness you talked about, I deeply relate to and still do, to be honest. It hasn't gone away. But what has shifted is my perspective on what matters. I so relate. I'm a immigrant child as well. I came to the US when I was 4. There is just this programming of I need to take advantage of this opportunity. I need to make my parents proud. I need to put their sacrifice to good use. And yeah, I'm going to do what I can to climb and to make it to these coveted roles and kind of shape shift myself to fit into the box that they want me to fit into as long as I can. And I'm stubborn, okay? So I tried my damnedest to fit into that box, but I simply couldn't. I could not. And my wake up call was ironically severe insomnia,
Mm.
these different stages in my career where I just like I couldn't, I was just buzzing at night. And so I just deeply relate to knowing that something isn't right and feeling it in your body first. Can you talk more about how you connect to your body and the role of the body when it comes to creativity and self connection?
Oh my goodness. The role of the body in creativity is everything. I believe our bodies are our first, most miraculous creative tools. Everything else is secondary. Without my body, I will not be able to do anything, like without my hands, without my senses, without my heart, without my brain, right? And in such a system of capitalism, it's so easy to look at other things as our creative tools, right? As like the supplies that I have or the inspiration that I can consume or whatever. And meanwhile, it's like it's all right here. And here being a microcosmic fragment or fractal of the planet and Mother Earth and Father Sky and like all the abundance that's in that body that's interconnected. So it's everything. Just this morning, I have been feeling a lot of fear and anxiety, and I made it a point to go on a walk and to not have my phone with me and to observe the flowers are bursting right now, right? And I go on daily walks and I'll pay attention to how things are shifting. And they're shifting so quickly and also so slowly at the same time. And I can like observe a rose that's blooming and visit her the next day and be like, "Oh wow, like ooh, your smell is more fragrant today," or "Oh wow, you're wilting, like you're going." And to feel like that micro grief of like this beautiful flower that I get to visit day after day that just like smells so potent and to be in that, that's a really big way that I can get into my body and that feels like ooh, so grounding and drops me down a little bit from the like thoughts, the anxiety, the not good enough, the too much, the comparison, the fear of the future, the fear of the world and the state of where it's at right now. Um, so that feels really important. Dance has been a really big piece too, just like dancing for 5 minutes by myself, dancing in community. Um,
Mm.
there's so many beautiful dance events in the area that I live in, and we don't always have that. It's such a gift, but it's there, and so I seek it out on purpose.
Yeah.
That always alchemizes my energy and allows me to be in my body.
Mm. That speaks to me so deeply as someone who speaks to trees and flowers and no longer feels weird about it. It sounds like what you've done is and are doing as a consistent practice is you're slowing down. You're slowing down and you're pulling your energy out of the collective, which is where I think a lot of the anxiety and the grief and the fear is coming from, for a good reason. Like we're observing very scary things that don't feel right and they shouldn't feel right. But I do feel like in these times it is important, especially as creative leaders and people who need to be at a certain frequency to pull out, pull back, connect to earth, connect to the senses and the sensory and to the breath. So thank you for that reminder to just get outside, get offline, even for 10 minutes, and just feel your heart and what's true for you.
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because very often it feels like the sky is falling in my world. I go outside for 10 minutes on a sunny day and I'm like, wow, life is great. Life is grand. And it's like, oh, how do we hold both of these realities? And it just is.
It just
It just
is.
is.
Yeah, that's so real. And nothing that we're talking about here, going outside, paying attention to nature, getting offline, dancing, none of it is radical by any means. None of it is new, right? But that's, I think, what is so beautiful about it. It's again something we've always had.
Yeah.
And it's simple, but sometimes the simplest practices are the most difficult to, especially to get past the judging mind. Because the judging mind for me is like, bitch, tell me something new. Like, what am I supposed to do here? And it's like, no, actually, you already know. Just do the damn.
Mm,
And for me, I wouldn't say I'm pulling away from the collective. I still think I'm very tapped into the collective, but for me, it's been such a process of discernment. Like,
yeah.
how tapped in can this body and sensitivity handle? For me, it's not scrolling and getting all the headlines. For me, I literally can have one post and that will be enough, right? But I also don't get my news anymore from media. That has been a strong boundary that I've been holding, especially since October of 2024. Now it's through conversation, it's through interpersonal exchange. Now it's through people I trust, honestly. And yes, it is a little bit echo chambery, but I'm still tapped into the suffering of the world in a
Yeah.
way that allows me to still maintain the enchantment, the awe, the joy,
Yeah.
the freedom,
Yeah.
right? And you're right, there is a holding of the both and, which is such an art in and of itself.
Mm. It truly is. It truly is. And I part of what is becoming clearer and clearer to me is the responsibility we have to accept our individuation and the individual paths we're on and the collective at the same time. It's like simultaneous. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. And it can be incredibly beautiful. And that's actually something you supported me with is finding my own voice and my own expression when I was too enmeshed in a sort of collective at the former kind of company I was at, the life I was living, and expanding my understanding of what creativity is, right? I've been an artist since I was very young, and I would feel so guilty about not having any energy or like life force after long days at work to paint and draw. And I felt like, okay, I'm not creative. But in that first container you held for me in 2020, not just me, it was like a group of maybe 20 other women and non binary folks. You expanded that. You expanded what is creativity, and it was everything. I felt so free. I felt immediate relief. Like, oh, it's innate. It's inside of me. Like my body has these codes. I just am. So I just felt the need to remind you of that or just share that. And it also is bringing up for me something else that changed my life. This conversation around the inner critic, that inner voice that you brought up before, that is, whoo, I don't know about, well, I do know about yours because you share so beautifully about it, but mine is hilarious, loud, rude. She doesn't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm. Unhinged.
Can you unhinged?
Right.
Can you share about the inner critic and how we can work with that part of the self?
Ooh, I love the inner critic. More specifically, I love exploring this work of the inner critic because it can be so painful, right? Because it, in a way, is an attack against us from the inside, right? And it's an attack on us from the inside that has been looking around in society, in the world, and determining what's the right way to be. So I feel like the inner critic is such a sponge for colonial, white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalist ways of being. And then it gives it back to us in an attempt to have us be safe in these really messed up systems. So, in essence, it's like trying desperately to keep us safe by matching the energy of dysfunction. And I say us with confidence because it is an archetype, right? I really value speaking from the I. That is an agreement in all the spaces that I hold. That's an agreement I learned from my dear friend, sister, and mentor, Shilpa Jain, around like speaking from the I and owning our own experience. Though sometimes I speak from the we because I also work from archetypical wisdom and archetypes that speak to our common humanity. And so the inner critic is one of those archetypes that just has very basic characteristics. It's very black or white. It's very comparative, right? It's very primal focused. And there are many other characteristics associated with it that pretty much match most of our inner critics, if not all, no matter who we are, right? And while it's very natural and human to respond to our inner critics, the way we respond to any attack through fight, flight, freeze, or appease, right? Fight could look like, oh no, I'm about to have my like cheerleader contest you and be in an inner debate. That's a fight, and it takes up a lot of energy, even though we're trying to protect and nurture ourselves, right?
Mm.
Or to flee it in the space of creativity, it's like, oh, creativity brings up my inner critic. I'm not going to do the thing. No, it's too scary, right? And creativity involves a lot of uncertainty, a lot of risk taking. We don't know how the process is going to go. We don't know how it's going to land with people. That uncertainty is risky and courageous. And uncertainty archetypically triggers the inner critic, right? So we could flee the inner critic by avoiding our callings, our longings to be expressed. We could appease to the inner critic and believe it to be true. Oof, so painful. Or we could freeze and be paralyzed with the inner critic. All of those are very natural human responses. But what I love to teach and the practice that I've been involved in for a number of years that has evolved my relationship to my inner critic and evolved people's relationships to their inner critic is a very Buddhist, mindful, compassionate approach. And that is actually consenting to the inner critic, which is very different than just hearing it talking at us. We're putting ourselves in a position of power to say, oh, I see you as distinct from me. You're a part of me, but you are not me. Here's the talking stick for a contained amount of time. I will hear you and practice not reacting to you, right? Which is what we all want. We all deeply want just to be heard and not reacted to, right? But our reactiveness is so common as humans, right? Even when we just listen to people we care about, we're always reacting. What am I going to say next? Do I agree with that? Is that right? Is that wrong? Right? The reaction urge is so strong. So it's quite radical to just be in a space of sacred witness, to just be in a space of consent, giving generously space to this part of us to express without taking it on or debating it, denying it, affirming it, changing it. And what I found in that process is that for me, and what I've witnessed in others, is that the inner critic changes to some gnarly monster into some like vulnerable, scared, shitless child or something, you know? It's like, oh, you're so scared. You're so scared, and you have valid reason to be scared. And in that way, we really see this part of ourselves. This is a form of shadow work, right? Particularly with the archetype of the inner critic. So I do coaching sessions with that, like in the room, because again, we're working with universal archetypes. If someone were to give voice to their inner critics, it's very likely that other people in the room will hear that and be like, damn, my inner critic says a version of that too. Inner
Yes.
critics are in the room right now. Okay, that's not that person who's speaking. That's not them. That's a part of all of us, right? So we can individuate, as you said before, ourselves from this evolved part of ourselves that is there to protect us, to keep us safe, and to match certain energies in the field, but to not over identify or be enmeshed with it, because a lot of us are enmeshed with our inner critics and we confuse it and conflate it with us, but it ain't us.
Mm-mm. Thank you. Oof, 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 oof. Letting that wash over me and just, yeah, remembering the gift of your perspective on the inner critic that opened up so much for me many years ago at this point. I can't believe it's been almost 5 years.
What's your relationship with your inner critic now?
Ooh, I've everything you mentioned, everything, every type of relationship you mentioned of like battling it, um, sometimes ignoring it, sometimes feeling like I am it, and then when I feel stable and remember what I'm supposed to be doing, listening and giving it space and separating myself from it. Um, it actually reminds me of just like the ego, and I'm curious like if they're one and the same or if it's an aspect of the ego, but yeah, even this creation, this podcast, this self-expression, it's been so loud. It's been so loud. And initially, it was just so painful because I'm like, what is erupting in me? Like, it feels awful to like purge this much
Yeah.
to bring forward something my soul wants to bring forward. It's like, okay, I want, I finally feel safe enough in my body to express myself, but inner critic's like, oh, not so fast, baby girl. Not so fast. So, yeah, if I'm honest, it's all three. It depends on the day. And on a good day, it is me having conversation and speaking to that part of myself and literally experiencing the shift from like, and I'm gonna go there, almost like this demonic kind of vibe
Yeah.
into just fear. And I'm a channeler. I have this ability to speak from different dimensions and different parts of myself. And so it will come out from this like intense, gnarly energy. And then as we communicate and I hear it out, we get to the root, which is I'm fucking scared and you better take care of me.
Mhm.
It's just, it always lands there.
Yeah, totally.
So, yeah.
I mean, I just want to acknowledge that like the fact is the inner critic never goes away, right? The point of the work is just to evolve our relationship with it. And what that tells me based on what you said, and this feels important to reiterate, especially for folks listening, is that when the inner critic is really intense and is reeling its gnarly demonic heads, because it's always multiple heads, it's sneaky AF, right? To me, what that means is that we are traversing territory that we have never done before in this lifetime and possibly other lifetimes prior to us ancestrally, right? Which is where, imposterism comes from. And that whole feeling like I'm a fraud and I'm going to get caught or I've worked hard for this, but here I am. And what I found when I work with folks grappling with that particular kind of inner critic, it's that, oh, they're the first woman in their family who has worked in this environment or been in advanced institutions or, is asserting her leadership in this way. It's always that we are expanding our realm of possibility. And of course that's going to trigger the inner critic. The inner critic is like, we have literally never experienced this before. Skirt. Calm down, stop, 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 alarm, 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 right? And so yes, what that tells me is that it's a we are undergoing a rite of passage into being seen more, being loved more, being free more, right? And
Wow.
that's the inner critic doing its damn thing to come in and show us the dark corners of our being that we've never shed light on in this expansive way. So it actually is quite a beautiful gift to get to meet our inner critics in this way, even though it's hella uncomfortable and painful, right? And super dysregulating.
Oh,
But what a
ooh.
gift. It's like, okay, I see you, boo. You're
Mm,
afraid. Okay, I got it. I'm here with you. I'm giving you time. We're going through this. I'm still with you. I got you, right? There's light and dark in us, and we have to hold both because that
yeah.
expands our freedom, right?
Yes. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So much. I have literal full body chills. Oh man, there's so much there. I'm like, which path do we want to take? I just need to breathe that in for a second. Wow, wow, wow. Mm. What you just shared opened up, it just clarified so much. It just clarified so much. A lot of truth can get obscured in all of these different paths that I explore and traverse, right? The spiritual path, the creative path, the I'm a black woman, there's this, all these different layers of the self. But at the end of the day, what has just clicked for me is that shadow, inner critic, ego, whatever you want to call the archetype within that will be heard, damn it.
Oh, absolutely.
it it is trying to protect me as I quite literally, because of my soul contract here, I'm going beyond where my ancestors could.
Yeah.
I know it's in my DNA and my cells, this this need to veil and to not speak up, to survive. It is like survival codes being transmuted into freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just got chills with that. Survival codes being transmuted into freedom codes, really is what it is. And that's so, so deep. And, this conversation around individuation, we started off talking about individuating from our immigrant parents' values for us, and individuating from the inner critic, and individuating from these survivalist strategies, right? I think when we are living according to our freedom codes and following our soul's calling, we are allowing our ancestors to rejoice at their level. We're allowing, I know I can speak for myself, I'm allowing the highest parts of my parents to rejoice, the parts of them that they long to express, that they never got to, that they haven't gotten to yet. That's who I'm making proud. I'm not making their survivalist codes proud. And I've had to reckon with that, as I've also practiced not trying to feed my survivalist codes.
Oh, wow. Ooh, okay. Not think I was gonna cry today. Oh man.
Oh my God, I adore you.
Yeah, it's just very freeing what you're saying. Because who we interface with, our parents, some of our friends, we're interfacing often with that survival self, the self that is probably run by their inner critic and need to
Yeah,
be here physically.
totally.
Mental, emotional, spiritual, that's secondary. And so when you're a being here to just do it differently, it can feel like such a disconnect.
Yeah.
And what you just opened up for me is wow, their higher self, their more expanded self that might not be present yet is cheering me on.
Yeah.
It's cheering me on. And it's like a marathon, like they're passing the baton, you know? Oof.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, I'm gonna sit with that for a while.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit with that for a while because it requires an expanded view of this life, you know? You can't be you can't just view it from a regular like humanistic perspective. It's like I have to be expansive to have my needs fully met and to feel met by the world. And that is a path. It's a path.
It is a path. It is. And I mean, it's one where it's just like, again, it's like do we choose the path or does the path choose us? Or it's interconnected, right? It's a weaving of like I'm choosing it every day. Some days I'm not choosing, but it's choosing me. And I'm like, what the? Can I just be basic and like on the standard path, like where everyone's like predictable, like it's predictable, and I'm following the strategy and the protocol of what it means to be a woman on the planet right now. Um, but yeah, I mean, I also know in a deep way that that wouldn't satiate me. That just wouldn't be right. And I don't know if it satiates anybody, but maybe it does. I don't know. Um, I can only speak for myself. And I have to say that I have been gifted with that knowing through just receiving glimmers from my parents, glimmers from society that that I can see like the higher selves in all of
Yeah.
it, where I feel their admiration or longing or me reflecting back something deeper within them, that speaks to their heart. And I'm like, and then I know, I'm like, oh, this is you. Oh, wow, you've dreamed this dream that I get to live. Oh my God, chills, right? It's such a, again, the word privilege has been coming up a lot in conversation, in the last 5 years, especially in my world, um, post pandemic, post George Floyd, a
Mhm.
lot of reckoning, with internalized bias, even in POC communities. So important, right? And just the level of socioeconomic disparity between us reflected by the pandemic. Privilege has been used a lot. And And what I'm realizing more than privilege, it's like so much of a responsibility. I have these privileges and their responsibility that I get to have. They enable me to respond in a particular way on this path collectively of liberation and love and peace, right? Because privilege can have such a weighted element to it of shame and guilt and like hiding and trying to make it not known because you can easily be canceled for certain privileges in the society that we live in and stuff. But oh my gosh, I do not want to hide the gifts that I get to have because that allows me to be a steward. And it's so much more complicated than that. But yes, I refuse to succumb to like guilt or shame for getting to have what maybe my ancestors didn't have, or getting to live a life that even a generation before me didn't get, right? Even something simple as living alone, getting to curate my space in my like late 30s and be able to enjoy my own company, My mother's, aunties, grandmothers, they never had that.
Yeah.
It's such a simple privilege that I can easily take for granted, but what a gift that I get to have my own space like this. So things like that is like, oh, okay, so then what can I do with that for myself first, and then as an extension from a full regenerated cup, what can I do from that? Because there's always going to be something.
Mm. You said so much there. And yeah, it's beautiful to have the opportunities that we have and the spaciousness that we have. And like you said, there is this sacred responsibility to make the most of our freedom and our sovereignty. And to bring it back to the work that you do, you help people unlock their gifts. You do that. And I want to thank you for that. And I would love for you to share as we close out about any upcoming containers, programs, and offerings, ways to work with you so that anyone who's listening who knows they have so much they want to share, so much they want to do, but they may feel a bit stifled or just not safe
Mhm.
yet.
Totally.
How can people work with you to unlock that safety?
Yeah. There's so many levels of safety that we work with, right? There's internal safety, again, with the inner critic. If the inner critic is saying creativity is indulgent, it's a luxury, you're wasting time right now doing your creative things. It's like, okay, yeah. And also, right, what's the yes and to that? in that it's a responsibility, it's our duty as creative beings, as born creators, to
Mm.
activate that and to let that be of service to ourselves and to others. So I work a lot in the realm of like safety within self, within the body, and interpersonal safety, because as social beings, as mammals, we are more disciplined, we are more creative when we're with each other, right? We are more inspired when we're with each other, which is how the river came about, the membership space of global change makers doing their thing. So, yeah, there's several ways. I have a lot of free resources on my website, one of which being a free 15-day exploration to soften the inner critic. And it teaches a little bit about the process that I love with being with the inner critic consciously and consensually in a boundaried way. So there's that. I also have a free resource about moving past ego to be of service to something bigger. So, to your earlier wondering, I believe ego and the inner critic are sister friends, and inner critic is a facet of ego. Ego also just wants to protect us so badly based on the past and what it thinks it knows. So there's those free resources. I also have the Creation for Liberation podcast, which will be coming out with season 3 in the near future, as well as my Substack, which I write a lot on about more of my personal explorations as a person gifted the name awareness. Chetna means awareness. And so it's been my North Star since I've chosen it back in my life. And so I write on topics around awareness and creativity and decolonization and recovery and other topics like that. Otherwise, I work one-on-one with folks. That's where there's more of a personal cultivation where I meet folks where they're at and ask a lot of questions and maybe poke a little bit at the stories or beliefs that are restrictive or fear-based and see what else is there. And then we do a lot of group work because, as a therapist, and I don't use that title on purpose anymore, but, trained as a therapist, it was a lot of like one-on-one work. But what I find in my own healing and the healing that I'm witness to in other people is that we need each other. Indigenously, we healed in circle, in community. So there's a lot of opportunities to be in intentional circle with folks. I will be for the first time hosting Creative Somatic Alchemy in the Bay. Um, I love that you were in Creative Somatic Alchemy too, Tony, virtually. And since I launched it 3 years ago, I've always had the seed dream there that it would be amazing to do it in person. So for the first time, we're launching it in the Bay in May. So any Yay area folks, please check it out. And then we have a lot of virtual offerings within the River membership, including yoga and meditation and open mics and co-working and like all facets of our creative beings we get to be in together in an embodied way. And then every now and then we'll have collaborative series that relate to spirituality and drawing on our creative muses to be creative change makers in the time. So there's a lot on there, and it's on my personal website and on the Mosaic Eye Collective website, which is my private therapeutic practice turned artist collective.
Mm, 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 mm. Everything you share just feels so rich and abundant and nourishing. You are feeding the people. So thank you for everything you do. And I'll be sure to have links to everything in our show notes. So, my final question that I ask all of my guests is, maybe a simple one, maybe not. What is a creator to you?
Ooh, what is a creator to me? Hmm. Wow. That's so funny. It's like such a complex question, yet so probably simple, right? Everything. I don't know. That's the word that comes. Like everything. A creator to me is everything. A creator to me is a rock, it's a plant, it's a tree, it's the star that, probably burnt out a long time ago, but is still visible. It's you and I, it's this glass of water. Um, it's everything.
Mm, mm, mm. The all that is.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. It's so expansive. And I just love hearing. everyone's perspective, because we're all saying the same thing in our own framework, in our
Well,
own language. So
what would
I
you
just
say today?
today, a creator is someone, something that is conscious of their ability to express, regenerate, and give life to something.
Mm,
I've
amazing.
never, thank you for asking me, because I've never said those words before. It just came out.
Isn't that amazing? Creator vibes just comes out.
It just, yeah, it came from source, the
Yeah.
ultimate creator. Thank you, Chetna, for this conversation. I feel full. I feel
Mm,
full. I'm so
likewise.
grateful.
Yeah.
I'm very, very thankful for you, and so, so excited that we get to cross paths in this co-creation. And I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much, Tony. I feel so, yeah, honored to be weaving with you and witnessing what you birth into the world.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and rate Born Creators on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to connect with us on social. You can follow the show at borncreators.project on Instagram. And you can follow me, your host, at Intuitive Tony with an I. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, remember, you are a born creator.